My beloved sisters, there comes a time in your life when you must pause and ask yourself, who is really steering my heart? Is it the fear of people, the pressure of society, or the desire to please someone who does not value your worth? Or is it the desire to please the one who created you? Too many hearts today are shattered because they handed the keys of their happiness to someone who did not know how to hold them. My sisters, listen carefully. No one on this earth has the right to control your emotions, your dreams, or your dignity. That right belongs only to the Almighty. If someone's words can break you, it means you've given them too much space in your heart. If someone's treatment can define your worth, it means you've forgotten what your Creator has already defined. You are honored. You are valued. You are capable. Some people love to dictate how you should live, behave, dress, speak, even think. And slowly, without realizing it, you begin to shrink yourself just to keep them happy. But let me remind you, you were not created to walk this world in fear. You were created to walk it with dignity. Setting boundaries is not arrogance. Saying no is not disrespect. Prioritizing your mental and spiritual health is not selfish. It is wisdom. It is strength. It is obedience to the Almighty who entrusted you with this life. My sisters, stop allowing people to guilt trip you into silence. Stop letting the wrong voices drown out your own. The moment you stop being controlled by others is the moment you begin to grow. Spiritually, emotionally, and mentally. Remember, anyone who truly cares for you will never suffocate you. They will support you, empower you, and help you rise. But if someone keeps pulling you down, draining your peace, and belittling your worth, it is a sign that the Almighty is pushing you toward a better chapter. Your journey is between you and your Creator, not between you and the people who constantly judge you. Reconnect with Him. Refocus your heart on Him, because when He becomes the center of your life, no one else will have the power to shake you. My sisters, be strong, be wise, be anchored in faith, and above all, never hand your soul to someone who was never meant to control it. When you begin to understand that your worth is defined by the Almighty and not by the temporary opinions or expectations of people, an incredible transformation takes place within you. So many women today carry the weight of judgments, criticism, and unrealistic standards placed upon them by society, culture, family, or even friends. But the truth is simple. Creation cannot define the creation. Only the Creator defines His creation. When He has honored you, when He has raised your status, when He has declared your dignity, why should the fluctuating voices of people determine how you see yourself? Human beings change. Their moods change, their perceptions change, their loyalties change, and their standards change. One day they praise you, the next day they criticize you. One day you are good enough, and the next day you fall short of an invisible standard. If you let such unstable opinions settle in your heart, you will never find peace, because you will spend your whole life trying to satisfy people who are impossible to satisfy. But when you anchor your worth in the words of your Creator, you rise above this turbulence and discover a quiet confidence that cannot be stolen by anyone. The Almighty tells you that you are honored. He tells you that you have been created in the best form. He tells you that your taqwa, your sincerity, your patience, your compassion, your modesty, your efforts, these are what make you valuable. None of these qualities can be measured by people who judge you only by what they see from the outside. People may focus on your failures or your shortcomings, but your Creator looks at your intentions, your struggles, and your heart. When you understand that His judgment is the only one that truly matters, the negativity of others begins to lose its power over you. So many women exhaust themselves trying to fit into molds that were never meant for them. They force themselves to act a certain way, dress a certain way, speak a certain way, or live a certain way simply because they fear being disliked or misunderstood. But ask yourself, what happens when you live to please people? You lose yourself. You lose your authenticity. You lose your connection with the one who created you. You begin to live according to expectations that suffocate your soul. You feel pressured, controlled, and constantly anxious because you are trying to keep up with an ever-changing set of standards. Then remember this, God does not burden you with what is unreasonable. He does not compare you to anyone. He does not expect perfection, but He loves effort. He does not care for superficial beauty, but He values purity of heart. He does not ask you to impress the world. He asks you to stay sincere, truthful, and upright. When your worth comes from Him, suddenly you don't feel the need to chase validation. You realize that what people think of you does not increase or decrease your value in the slightest. Once your heart accepts that your true worth lies with the Almighty, you begin to walk differently. You become more confident, not arrogant. You become more calm, not careless. You become more sincere, not desperate for approval. You stop apologizing for being who you are. You stop shrinking yourself to make others comfortable. You stop tolerating disrespect because you know your dignity is sacred. You stop letting people manipulate your emotions because someone who knows where her worth comes from cannot be easily shaken. When someone criticizes you unfairly, you remind yourself, people see only a fraction, but your Creator sees the entire picture. When someone tries to make you feel small, you remind yourself, the one who created the heavens and the earth has already honored you. When someone tells you that you are not good enough, you remind yourself, my value does not depend on their approval. It depends on my connection with the Almighty. Understanding your worth also protects your heart from being exploited. When you do not know your value, you give people free access to your emotions and they use them however they wish. But when you understand that you are precious, you become more selective about who you allow into your life and whose opinions you entertain. You begin to prioritize peace over popularity, sincerity over attention, depth over superficiality. You begin to choose what nourishes your soul rather than what impresses people. Your worth is not defined by your appearance, your relationship status, your achievements, your failures, your past, or the opinions of those who barely know you. Your worth is defined by the fact that the Almighty created you with purpose, wisdom, and honor. You are a soul treasured by the one who shaped you, sustained you, and watches over you every moment. Once you embrace this truth, you rise above the noise of the world. You stop begging for acceptance. You stop fearing rejection. You stop competing with others. You start focusing on what truly matters, your growth, your character, your faith, and your journey with your Creator. And when your heart is anchored in His definition of your worth, no one will ever have the power to make you feel unworthy again. Emotional and spiritual strength begins to grow the moment you stop allowing others to control the way you feel. Many people do not realize how much power they hand over to others. Power over their happiness, their mood, their confidence, even their sense of self. When your emotions depend on how someone speaks to you, treats you, or acknowledges you, you become vulnerable to every fluctuation in their behavior. One moment you feel valued, the next moment you feel broken. One moment you feel appreciated, the next moment you feel invisible. This roller coaster continues until you finally recognize that your heart was never meant to be in anyone's hands, but your Creator's. People are imperfect. They act out of their own fears, wounds, insecurities, expectations, and limitations. Sometimes they hurt you unintentionally, sometimes without considering your feelings, and sometimes out of their own unresolved pain. If you let their behavior dictate your emotional state, you will live in constant turmoil. But when you understand that your peace comes from within, rooted in faith, grounded in self-awareness, and anchored in the Almighty, you begin to reclaim your own heart. There are women who spend years trying to earn the affection of someone who gives it only when convenient. They bend themselves, suppress their feelings, tolerate disrespect, and accept emotional neglect, simply because they fear losing someone. But the truth is, the more you rely on someone else to validate you, the more they will control your emotions. You start reading too deeply into their tone, their silence, their words, and even their absence. It becomes exhausting, physically, mentally, and spiritually. Strength begins with awareness. Awareness that you cannot control how others behave, but you can control how much access they have to your emotions. Awareness that your inner peace is too precious to be handed to someone who does not guard it. Awareness that you deserve to feel valued without having to beg for acknowledgement. Once this awareness settles in your heart, you begin to take your power back. Emotional independence does not mean arrogance. It does not mean you stop caring about others or become emotionless. It means you stop allowing others to dictate whether you should feel happy or sad, confident or insecure, hopeful or hopeless. It means your emotional state is governed by your connection with the Almighty, not by the opinions or actions of people whose hearts change with the wind. When you depend on people for emotional stability, every disappointment feels like a storm. But when you depend on your Lord, even storms begin to feel like temporary shadows, because you know the one who controls the storm also controls your heart. You begin to trust that difficulties are meant to strengthen you, not destroy you. Some people use manipulation, guilt, silent treatment, or emotional pressure to control others. They make you feel responsible for their moods. They expect you to sacrifice your peace to maintain theirs. They teach you to prioritize their comfort over your own mental well-being. Slowly, you start to believe that your emotions do not matter as long as they are satisfied. This is not love. This is control. Genuine love nurtures. It does not suffocate. It encourages. It does not belittle. It supports. It does not drain. When you stop letting others manipulate your emotions, you begin to recognize the difference between genuine care and emotional control. You begin to see who lifts you and who silently pulls you down. You become selective about whose words you internalize and whose behavior you allow to impact your mood. Spiritual strength grows alongside emotional strength. When your heart is connected to the Almighty, you gain a shield against the chaos of people's behavior. You stop reacting impulsively. You stop breaking over trivial matters. You begin to think, reflect, and respond with wisdom. You learn to breathe through difficulty, pray through confusion, and remain patient through disappointment. This kind of strength requires practice. It requires learning to pause before reacting, learning to detach from unnecessary negativity, learning to turn to prayer before turning to people, learning to remind yourself that your value is not measured by how others treat you. Gradually, your heart transforms. You become calmer, more grounded, more resilient. People's words start to feel lighter. Their opinions lose their power. Their moods no longer shake your peace. When you no longer allow others to control your emotions, you stop living in fear of judgment. You stop living in fear of rejection. You stop living in fear of not being enough. You no longer carry the burden of proving your worth. Instead, you live with quiet confidence, knowing that your Creator sees your efforts, understands your struggles, and writes your destiny with wisdom and mercy. Life becomes more peaceful when you learn to protect your emotional space. Some people may not understand it. They may accuse you of being distant or uncaring. But you know the truth. You are not withdrawing from people. You are returning to yourself. You are prioritizing your heart, your sanity, your faith, your growth. You are learning to respond to life from a place of strength rather than fear. And when you reach that stage, something beautiful happens. You attract healthier relationships, make wiser decisions, and walk through life with a sense of calm that cannot be shaken. Because your emotions are no longer controlled by people, they are guided by the one who knows what is best for you. This is emotional freedom. This is spiritual empowerment. This is the moment your true strength begins to shine. See, teeing boundaries is one of the greatest forms of self-respect. And when done with the right intention, it becomes an act of worship. Many people misunderstand boundaries. They think they are harsh, rude, or unkind. But in reality, boundaries are a way of saying, I value the life that my Creator has entrusted to me, and I will not allow it to be harmed or diminished. When you set limits around your emotional, spiritual, and mental well-being, you are acknowledging the responsibility the Almighty has placed upon you to protect your heart, your dignity, and your peace. Without boundaries, people feel entitled to your time, your energy, your emotions, and even your silence. They assume they have unrestricted access to you simply because you never say no. They become accustomed to treating you in ways that drain you, but you continue to tolerate it because you fear conflict, disappointment, or tension. That fear is exactly what keeps so many women stuck in cycles of emotional burden. But the moment you realize that protecting your heart is not selfishness, but stewardship, you begin to understand the power and necessity of boundaries. You were not created to carry the emotional weight of every person in your life. You are not created to constantly say yes while your heart whispers no. You are not created to be responsible for everyone's happiness while ignoring your own exhaustion. You are not created to tolerate disrespect simply because you want to avoid discomfort. The Almighty teaches balance, fairness, and justice, not the idea that you must sacrifice your well-being for the comfort of others. When you set boundaries, you are restoring this balance in your life. There are women who give endlessly, emotionally, mentally, physically, yet they receive so little in return. They pour so much into others that they forget to nourish their own souls. They feel guilty for taking even a moment to rest or say no. But this exhaustion is not a badge of honor. It is a sign that boundaries have been neglected for too long. Even your Creator commands rest, moderation, and self-care. He does not ask you to break yourself for others. He does not reward you for allowing people to misuse you. He rewards sincerity, kindness, and effort, but not self-destruction. Boundaries are a reflection of self-awareness. They show that you understand your limits, your values, and your emotional capacity. When you set a boundary, you are telling others how you expect to be treated. You are teaching them what is acceptable and what is not. You are establishing a space where your dignity is respected, your peace is guarded, and your heart is safe. And if someone reacts negatively to your boundaries, it is often because they benefited from your lack of them. Saying no is not a sign of disrespect. It is an expression of self-respect. There is strength in saying, I cannot take this on right now, or I deserve to be spoken to with kindness, or I will not tolerate behavior that hurts me. These statements are powerful. They reclaim control over your emotional world. They remind you that you have a right to peace, just as anyone else does. Boundaries also protect your spiritual well-being. When you allow people to overwhelm you emotionally, your worship becomes affected. Your prayers lose focus. Your heart feels heavy. Your mind is consumed with stress. But when you guard your emotional space, your worship becomes clearer. Your connection with your Creator becomes stronger. And your heart feels lighter. Protecting your peace protects your faith. Many women fear that setting boundaries will push people away. But the truth is, boundaries filter your life. They remove those who take advantage of you and strengthen relationships that are built on mutual respect. The people who truly care about you will honor your boundaries. They will understand your limits. They will appreciate your honesty. They will not guilt trip you for protecting yourself. But those who only wanted access to your energy without giving anything in return will resist your boundaries. Let them resist. You are not responsible for their discomfort. You are responsible for your well-being. Setting boundaries also helps you grow emotionally. You become more confident, more assertive, and more aware of your value. You begin to stand tall in your truth. You learn to communicate with clarity rather than resentment. You speak with confidence rather than apology. You make decisions based on wisdom rather than fear. This emotional growth spills over into every part of your life, your relationships, your work, your worship, and your sense of purpose. There will always be people who expect more from you than you can give. There will always be people who test your limits. There will always be people who misunderstand your intentions. But do not let their opinions deter you from protecting your heart. Your peace is too precious to be left unguarded. Your mind is too valuable to be filled with unnecessary stress. Your heart is too sacred to be handed to those who do not care for it. Boundaries are not walls, they are doors. You open them for the right people and close them for the wrong ones. You decide who enters your emotional space. You decide who stays and who leaves. You decide how much you give. This is not selfishness. This is wisdom. This is balance. This is self-respect. And when you set boundaries with sincerity and the right intention, it becomes a form of worship. Because you are honoring the body, mind, and soul that the Almighty entrusted to you. You are protecting the blessings He gave you. You are choosing peace over chaos, dignity over fear, and balance over burden. This is what it means to respect yourself. This is what it means to honor the life you were given. This is what it means to set boundaries that uplift your heart and elevate your soul. You cannot pour from an empty cup, and you cannot uplift others when your own heart is breaking in silence. Many women spend their lives giving time, giving patience, giving emotional care, giving support. Yet they often forget that they too need nurturing. They too need rest. They too need space to breathe, heal, and grow. When you ignore your own emotional and spiritual needs, you slowly begin to feel drained, overwhelmed, and disconnected from yourself. And when you reach that state, you cannot truly help anyone, no matter how much you try. Protecting your sanity, dignity, and faith is not selfish. It is necessary for survival. There are women who suppress their feelings so they won't burden others. They take on responsibilities far beyond their capacity because they don't want to disappoint anyone. They remain silent when their hearts are hurting because they think being strong means enduring everything alone. But strength is not about being emotionally numb. Strength is knowing when to step back, when to rest, when to say, I need a moment, or I cannot handle this right now, or I deserve better. When you honor your emotional limits, you allow yourself to function with clarity rather than exhaustion. Many women carry the emotional weight of families, friendships, and relationships. They feel responsible for keeping everyone happy, resolving conflicts, maintaining peace, and absorbing tension in the home. But the truth is, you are only one person. You are not meant to fix everyone's wounds, solve everyone's problems, or sacrifice your own well-being for the sake of keeping others comfortable. When you constantly prioritize everyone else, you end up neglecting yourself. And a neglected heart eventually breaks in silence. Your sanity is a trust from the Almighty. Your mental clarity is a blessing. Your emotional stability is a form of strength. When you protect these things, you are honoring the blessings He has given you. When you let them be damaged by toxic people, by overwhelming responsibilities, by emotional neglect, you are harming a part of yourself that the Almighty instructed you to care for. You are commanded to be gentle with others, yes, but you are also commanded to be gentle with yourself. There are homes filled with emotional burnout because one person is trying to carry everything alone. There are marriages where one partner consistently gives and the other takes, leading to slow, invisible emotional suffocation. There are friendships where one person is the constant listener while the other never asks, "How are you really doing?" There are workplaces where women push themselves beyond their limits to prove their worth. This imbalance drains the soul, and a drained soul cannot serve, cannot love deeply, cannot worship with presence, and cannot flourish. To help others in a meaningful way, you must be emotionally present and spiritually grounded. When your heart is stable, your compassion is sincere. When your mind is calm, your decisions are why. When your soul is nourished, your presence becomes a source of comfort rather than hidden exhaustion. Your own well-being strengthens your ability to uplift others. Some women fear that focusing on their mental and emotional health makes them selfish. But ask yourself, how can you support your family if you are emotionally drowning? How can you guide others if your thoughts are scattered and heavy? How can you love wholeheartedly when your heart is bruised from years of neglect? How can you worship with depth when your mind is overwhelmed with stress and exhaustion? You need to be whole to serve others from a place of sincerity rather than depletion. Protecting your dignity is equally important. When you allow others to treat you poorly, to disrespect your boundaries, to speak harshly, or to take advantage of your kindness, you lose a part of yourself each time. Dignity is sacred. No one, no matter their position in your life, has the right to violate it. You must be firm, not harsh, gentle, not weak, humble, not submissive to disrespect. When you protect your dignity, you teach others how to value you. You demonstrate that kindness does not equal weakness and patience does not equal passiveness. And above all, your faith must be protected. Life becomes heavy when your connection to the Almighty weakens. You begin to rely too much on people, and people will always disappoint. You begin to expect too much from relationships, and relationships always go through seasons. When faith becomes secondary, everything else becomes shaky. But when faith is strong, everything else falls into perspective. Your faith reminds you that you are not alone. It reminds you that healing is possible, that strength comes from the Almighty, that wisdom grows from hardship, and that your worth is far greater than the limitations others place on you. To truly help others, you must help why? Ourself first. You must heal what is broken within you. You must rest when your body is tired. You must step away from toxic environments. You must allow yourself moments of silence, prayer, and reflection. You must reconnect with the one who created your heart, for He is the source of all strength. When you do this, you become someone whose presence carries warmth, whose words carry wisdom, and whose heart carries peace. A woman who protects her sanity is powerful. A woman who guards her dignity is unshakable. A woman who safeguards her faith is unstoppable. And a woman who prioritizes her own healing becomes a pillar of strength for everyone around her. When you take care of yourself, you do not just benefit yourself, you become a better mother, a better daughter, a better friend, a better partner, and most importantly, a better servant of the Almighty. You cannot help others until you protect your own soul. And when your soul is protected, you become a source of light in a world full of shadows. True love never demands that you lose yourself. It never requires you to shrink your personality, silence your voice, compromise your values, or abandon your dreams just to keep someone close. Genuine love, whether it comes from a spouse, a family member, or a close friend, uplifts you. It nurtures you. It strengthens your sense of identity instead of dissolving it. This is a truth many women forget, especially when they are taught that love means sacrifice at any cost. But sacrifice without balance leads to emotional suffocation. And love that suffocates is not love. It is control disguised as affection. There are many women who enter relationships with sincerity and pure intentions. They are willing to give, willing to support, willing to build. But slowly they find themselves walking on eggshells just to avoid upsetting someone. They find themselves constantly apologizing, even when they have done nothing wrong. They find their decisions, opinions, and emotions being dismissed as unimportant. And because they fear losing the person, they begin to adjust themselves beyond recognition. They change their habits, hide their feelings, and bury their authenticity, hoping that this will preserve the relationship. But the more they lose themselves, the more the relationship becomes unbalanced and unhealthy. True love does not ask you to erase your identity. It encourages you to grow into it. The Almighty created every soul with individuality, strength, personality, and purpose. You were not created as a shadow to someone else. You were created as a complete human being with your own heart, your own mind, your own dreams, and your own journey. Any love that demands you to disconnect from who you truly are is not aligned with the nature of the heart that God created within you. Real love is rooted in respect. It acknowledges your feelings. It values your boundaries. It listens to your voice instead of overpowering it. When someone truly loves you, they want to understand you, not control you. They want to uplift you, not belittle you. They want to protect your dignity, not threaten it. They want to see you flourish, not fade. They want your heart to feel safe, not anxious. When a woman feels safe, she blossoms. When she feels heard, she becomes confident. When she feels respected, she gives from the best part of her soul. But when she feels controlled, diminished, or manipulated, she begins to wither. Her smile becomes strained, her energy becomes heavy, and her inner peace slowly disappears. This is why it is essential to recognize the difference between love and possession. Love embraces, possession traps. Love supports, possession demands. Love frees, possession restricts. Some women justify controlling behavior by saying, "He just sees Aries about me," or "It's because he loves me," or "This is how relationships work." But caring does not mean controlling. Love does not mean restricting freedom. Relationships do not require you to lose yourself. If someone's love makes you feel smaller, weaker, or less worthy, then you are not experiencing love. You are experiencing emotional dependency or imbalance. In healthy love, both hearts remain intact. Both identities remain visible. Both dreams remain alive. The relationship becomes a partnership where each person supports the other without overshadowing or devaluing them. You are allowed to have your own thoughts. You are allowed to make your own decisions. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to have goals that extend beyond the relationship. Someone who truly loves you will never mock your dreams or make you feel guilty for wanting growth. Love from family should also follow this principle. Parents, siblings, or relatives should not demand blind obedience that crushes your individuality. They should not impose expectations that violate your emotional or spiritual boundaries. Family love should guide, not dominate, support, not restrict, protect, not control. You are allowed to say, "I need space," or "I see things differently," or "This makes me uncomfortable." Your faith teaches you to honor your parents and family, but it never asks you to lose your identity or mental well-being in the process. When you understand that true love uplifts rather than controls, you begin to see relationships differently. You begin to notice which connections enrich your life and which ones drain your spirit. You start recognizing which voices encourage your growth and which ones silence your potential. You begin to appreciate the love that aligns with mercy, respect, and dignity, and distance yourself from love that suffocates your soul. You must also remember that the most important love in your life is the love between you and the Almighty. When that love is strong, you do not cling desperately to people. You appreciate them, but you do not depend on them to feel whole. You care for them, but you do not collapse when they disappoint you. You love them, but you do not allow them to undermine your worth. The love of the Creator teaches you that your dignity is sacred and your identity is a blessing. When you internalize this truth, your relationships naturally become healthier because you are no longer entering them from a place of fear or insecurity. True love brings out the best in you. It should make you more compassionate, more peaceful, more confident, and more aligned with your faith. It should inspire you to grow spiritually and emotionally, not cause you to lose your sense of self. If love asks you to sacrifice your dignity, your peace, your dreams, or your identity, then it is not love. It is a burden disguised as love. And a woman who understands this becomes unshakable. She knows that love is a gift, not a prison. She knows that her worth does not depend on being approved or controlled by someone. She knows that preserving her soul is more important than pleasing anyone at the cost of her well-being. She knows that she deserves love that aligns with mercy, not love that demands her to disappear. This is the love every heart deserves. This is the love that uplifts rather than controls. This is the love that allows you to be whole. Your journey with God is personal, intimate, and uniquely designed for your soul. No one else walks your path, feels your struggles, knows your private prayers, or understands the depth of your heart the way the Almighty does. Yet so many people allow others to dictate how close they should be to their Creator, how much they should grow, or how far they are allowed to reach. The truth is that your spiritual progress is not measured by other people's expectations. It is measured by sincerity, effort, and the quiet moments when your heart turns to the one who created you. No one has the right to interfere with that connection. Every person experiences life differently, different trials, different fears, different stories, different strengths. Comparing your journey to someone else's is like comparing two different worlds. Each soul is tested in ways that fit its growth. Each heart has its own mountains to climb and valleys to cross. When others try to impose their pace, their understanding, or their standards on you, they are interfering in a relationship that does not belong to them. Only the Almighty knows how far you can go, how deeply you can transform, and what potential lies hidden within you. Sometimes people underestimate you. They look at your past mistakes and assume you cannot rise. They look at your current struggles and assume you cannot grow. They see one chapter of your life and think they understand the entire book. But the Almighty sees the full story. He sees the pain you endured quietly, the tears you wiped alone, the effort you made in silence, the battles you fought in your heart, and the sincerity behind every attempt to become better. People judge. From the outside, your Creator judges from the inside, and the only judgment that matters for your journey is His. Many women feel pressured by cultural expectations, social norms, or opinions of relatives who think they know what is best. They are told how to behave, how to worship, how to dress, how to think, and even how to dream. They are shamed when they fall and judged when they rise. But faith is not a competition. It is not a performance for people to evaluate. Faith is a private conversation between your heart and its Creator. No one else has the right to dictate the pace or shape of that conversation. Your journey will have ups and downs. You will have moments of spiritual high when your heart feels light and close to God, and you will have moments of struggle when you feel distant, overwhelmed, or lost. This is part of being human. Even the strongest hearts experience seasons of weakness. What matters is that you keep returning, keep trying, keep seeking. The Almighty does not expect perfection. He expects sincerity. He does not ask you to compete with others. He asks you to be honest with yourself. He does not measure your worth by your lowest moments. He measures it by your willingness to rise after them. When you allow people to dictate your spiritual journey, you begin to lose connection with yourself. You start worshiping out of fear of judgment rather than love. You start improving to impress others rather than to please God. You start feeling guilty, not for neglecting your soul, but for not meeting someone else's expectations. This is not faith. This is pressure disguised as religion. Real faith brings peace to your heart, not anxiety. Real faith empowers you, not suffocates you. Your journey is your responsibility. No one else will answer for your choices, your actions, or your intentions. On the day when every soul stands alone, all the voice that tried to control you will be silent. All the opinions that held you back will disappear. The only thing that will matter is the sincerity of your heart and the steps you took toward becoming the best version of yourself. When you understand that your journey with God is personal, you stop caring about unnecessary judgment. You stop explaining yourself to people who want to misunderstand you. You stop seeking approval from those whose hearts are hardened. You begin to live with clarity, choosing what brings you closer to peace, not what satisfies the expectations of others. You begin to grow spiritually because you are no longer held back by fear of being criticized. Your relationship with the Almighty will deepen when you take ownership of it. Speak to Him in your own words, at your own pace, with your own struggles. Cry to Him in private if your heart is heavy. Seek forgiveness when your soul feels burdened. Express gratitude when blessings fill your life. The more personal your connection becomes, the stronger your faith will grow. And the stronger your faith grows, the less control people will have over your emotions, your decisions, and your identity. A woman who understands that her journey with God is her own becomes unstoppable. She no longer allows negative voices to hold her back. She no longer fears judgment from people who don't know her heart. She stops letting others define her worth or her spirituality. She becomes grounded, focused, and resilient. Her growth becomes intentional. Her choices become wiser. Her heart becomes calmer. And when people see this strength, they may still criticize, they may still doubt, but their opinions will no longer shake her because she knows who she is, where she is going, and who she is turning to for guidance. Remember, no one walks your path with you. No one feels what your soul feels. No one has lived you our story. Your journey with your Creator is personal, sacred, and unique. Do not allow anyone to dictate how far you can go. Only the Almighty decides that. And when He decides to elevate you, no one on earth can block your rise. My beloved sisters, after everything we have reflected upon, I want you to carry one message deep within your heart. You were created with purpose, with honor, and with a dignity that no human being has the right to take away. Life will always have people who try to limit you, control you, or define you according to their own insecurities. But your worth was never written by them. It was written by the Almighty long before you took your first breath. Every step you take toward reclaiming your peace, your clarity, and your spiritual strength is a step toward freeing yourself from the chains of people's opinions. Do not live your life apologizing for being who you are. Do not shrink your light because others are uncomfortable with it. Do not accept love that suffocates, guidance that bullies, or relationships that drain your soul. True love, true care, and true companionship will never demand that you betray yourself or lose your connection with your Creator. You owe it to yourself to stand firm, to set boundaries, to protect your heart, and to choose relationships that uplift you rather than break you. You owe it to yourself to stop giving people power that belongs only to God. And you owe it to yourself to walk this journey with confidence, knowing that the Almighty sees your struggles, hears your silent prayers, and knows the battles you fight behind closed doors. Remember that your life is not meant to be dictated by fear, guilt, or pressure. Your life is meant to be guided by faith, wisdom, and inner strength. When you place your heart in the hands of the one who created it, you will discover a peace that no one can disturb and a strength that no one can overpower. So walk forward with courage. Hold your head high. Refuse to be controlled by anyone who does not understand your worth. And always, always return to the Almighty when the world becomes too heavy. Because with Him, you will never be lost. With Him, you will never be alone. And with Him, you will always rise higher than before. May He bless you, protect you, and grant you the strength to live with dignity and the wisdom to never allow anyone to dim the beauty of your soul. Thank you, everyone.